got my braces off. And then I also got the third eye. This has been a great day. Hi everyone, this is 2 Minutes to Anna, and I'm your host, Anna. Today's video, I'm super excited to share with you. It's a topic I wanted to do for a very long time, and at least maybe like 2 years. And before I wanted to do it as an article, but now I want to do it as a video. And the topic is what most mental illnesses have in common, or the root cause of most mental illnesses. So I thought this would be a great video because there's so much stigma, ignorance, and misconceptions when it comes to mental disorders. Most people, when they think of mental disorders, think a dangerous person, like a psychopath or a sociopath, or someone who has like antisocial behavior or is narcissistic or manipulative. And they also think that either like the person is weak, and they also, think that there's something really strangely wrong with them and they should be avoided. I really want to change that perspective because stigma, misconceptions, and ignorance actually continuate mental disorders. We'll get more into that in this video. So I've been studying psychology for at least 5 years, and mostly like general psychology and abnormal were like my favorites. And I've read a lot of articles and journals about mental illness, and from these articles and studies, I found that most mental illnesses actually are extreme coping mechanisms to extreme traumas. So yeah, that was my mind-blowing realization, even though it's so kind of like simple, and even I think that a lot of psychologists be like, oh yeah, it's obvious. But at the same time, not everybody is a psychologist, and not everybody looks at mental illness thoroughly. Anyway, I wanted to, talk about this kind of idea I have. So yeah, don't try to kill me if it doesn't sound completely right. So yeah, let's just get started with this. So what do I mean by most mental disorders being extreme coping mechanisms to extreme traumas? So what I mean is that most, meaning mood disorders, anxiety disorders, dissociative disorders, eating disorders, all of those illnesses mostly have a traumatic event that triggers these mental disorders. And no, I'm not going to ignore that genetics have a very big impact on mental disorders, but I will say that I think that the triggers are more important than the genetics. And why I say this is because some of the genes are dormant until the traumatic event happens, and then they become expressed. But I do think maybe they're like 50% of it, but without the traumatic event, they're less likely to happen. I know that genetics, play an important role. For example, if you have an anxious mother, you're likely to have her genetics to be anxious too. But also, if you're living with her, it's also going to make you anxious, and then the genes will also be expressed. And yeah, this video is not going to focus mostly on the genetics, but mostly on the traumatic experience that made these mental disorders come to life more. And I also believe in this, which basically means that you can change your genes. I'm sure you can't change like your whole DNA or all your genes, but you can change a lot of them through like practice. Speaking of practice and things like that, personality disorders, usually people think personality is a fixed thing that cannot be changed. It's true that some traits are not changeable, but a lot can be changed. A lot of our personalities are actually habitual practices rather than just being something set in stone. So yeah, speaking of that, some personality disorders are also due to traumatic events, such as ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder. And an onset of how this happens usually is through childhood and being assaulted. Same goes with BPD, borderline personality disorder, and that is an instability in mood and relationships, and that also happens in childhood usually, and it can happen in like puberty or early adulthood, and that is also from traumatic events or a traumatic event that usually make these people have this condition. Yeah, that's just for personality disorders. So this is some mental disorders that are listed. So literally all the anxiety disorders are listed here, and they are all results from traumatic events. So that is generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorders such as panic attacks, specific phobia, a social anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and also mood disorders, depression, and I'm not sure about bipolar, but it could be. I'm not sure. So on the second list, we have eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, BED, pica, and we also have dissociate disorders. And on the last list, we have personality disorders such as borderline personality disorder, BPD, antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. And these are at least due to trauma, and some are not listed here. I haven't really done much research on personality disorders, to be honest, but I figure that some of them are actually due to trauma too. But since I'm not sure and I haven't researched that, I'm not going to put them on here. I also want to talk about like why they happen, like why in particular these abnormal behaviors happen with mental disorders. And here's why. Or this is what my conclusion is. So these disorders are supposed to be temporary coping mentalities to the intense specific traumas. These mental disorders then manifest and are actually helpful, but not healthy. For example, a girl who is raped loses her appetite and becomes anorexic. Anorexia numbs emotions of the rape and in general, and gives feelings of control which she wants to feel. Thus, she uses this to cope with the rape feelings, but develops another problem, the eating disorder. I could give many examples with various mental disorders, but I'm trying to make this video not exceed 8 minutes. And the thing I also wanted to mention is that a lot of times the coping mechanism or the mental illness outlasts the traumatic event. When this happens, the extreme coping disorder, as I would call it, other than mental disorder, becomes the new norm of coping with everyday stressors or traumas and changes the brain. Thus, the pattern becomes a habit and becomes hard to break, like a severe addiction. Anyway, so the main message or the summary of what I'm trying to say is that mental disorders are extreme coping mechanisms to extreme traumatic events. And thus, that means two things. One, that the person right now is experiencing a very traumatic, either chronic or just one-time really traumatic event. Or two, that they're over the traumatic event, but that their coping mechanism of how they deal with stressors now is still built on the mental disorder coping and is really hard to change since it's like an addiction or a fixed set. Also, I wanted to say that we should really change how we see people with mental disorders, not as that they're weak or that they're crazy, but that they're just going through something traumatic, and that we should have empathy towards them. We should all treat everybody with kindness, because you don't ever know what someone's going through until, you know, they tell you or never tell you. So yeah, that's my video for today. I hope you liked it, and I'm really curious to hear what your feedback about this video is, and you can leave your comment below. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe. I'm going to try to make more videos like this. They're more theory and psychology. I look so weird. I don't know why.
Hi YouTubers, just got my braces off.
That's actually what I say, except I'm not like that. I'm like, ah!